What is up? Happy Thanksgiving, Knight Nation. Jeff Sharon with you here, along with the student of the game, Kyle Nash. This is KnightShift. We're going to get this show out for you so that you can listen to it on the way down to the in-laws before we head into Thanksgiving. This is, at least they'll give you something to, get you through the drive, maybe the anxiety too, if you're like me. Anyway, plenty to talk about here. UCF Banneret _SBN on X. Also look for Black and Gold Banneret on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and more. What do we got here? We've got UCF against Houston, senior day on Saturday. We have UCF men's basketball winning back-to-back thrillers. Your boy was on the mic for the second half of that. I got a little clip for you. What else we got? Volleyball. We got soccer. Rough end to the year for men's soccer. We'll talk about that for a little bit and lick our wounds a little bit from that one and just get you ready for this Thanksgiving weekend. But first, let's get in.
We would be remiss to not mention vengeance gained in women's hoops there, Jeff Sharon.
I should mention that, and I goofed on not. That was a big dub for them.
Oh, yes.
Against Auburn. At home, beating an SEC team. I know people are going to be like, Auburn's not really good.
People, you mean Eric Lopez.
Yeah, usually I mean Eric Lopez. But let's listen. It's Thanksgiving weekend. That means we talk about football. So let's get started here. First of all, wrapping up from last week out in Lubbock. Oh, Kyle. 1 point loss on the road on a blocked extra point.
Yeah.
And it's too bad because we were talking about this in the chat. I looked at the game, I thought that UCF's game plan for this game, the coaching staff in particular, the game plan was perfect. I thought they had the right game plan to win that game, especially given what they were doing. They ran the ball well, threw it well in the right opportunities. It's just that there were little things along the way, execution in the execution department that kept UCF from winning the game. A couple third downs that they didn't get. We could talk about the blocked extra point all we want. And credit to Texas Tech. They also watched the film on us. Those 85 guys are on scholarship too. They know that we're vulnerable to the run game. But this one hurt because it felt like we had the full house, and we got caught on the river.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fine description. By the way, not for nothing, let's also give Taj Brooks his flowers. That guy is an NFL-style running back.
We've seen some backs this year, dude. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Well, and in particular, like if I'm going, and this is no offense to CJ Dillard, I think he was the Kansas State kid. No disrespect to him because he was a good runner too. Taj Brooks is easily my favorite opposing running back amongst the group. Just his running style where he can move past you, but there's pure juggernaut factor. How many times he personally repelled linebackers for UCF it was unfortunate for those who are members of Knight Nation, but for those who are lovers of football, it was quality football. And just the way the pads cracked when he busted through was just a sight to behold.
Really good patience, that dude. He was
yeah, that's a good point
runner.
too.
Reminded me of Isaiah Bowser.
I think he's
a little faster.
I think he's a little bigger than Isaiah too, not for nothing. But I like how you mentioned the intelligence there too. And I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to him in pass pro. I don't know how much he was challenged there per se, because a lot of UCF sacks aren't necessarily by blitzes from outside players. So a running back may not gauge so much into the protection as much, but I doubt he's bad at it. I need to see more field to truly evaluate, but he certainly has the size to also do what would be necessary in the NFL, and that's block as well. But you mentioned UCF's running game doing well, but Jeff, RJ Harvey didn't get 100 yards. Yeah, but they still as a team outran
right
the Power 5 Big 12 team, even though this offensive line allegedly isn't ready for the big time yet. I feel like this is, obviously John Rice Plumlee having his best rushing performance since the injury. I'm pretty sure OCP built John Rice Plumlee's brace. That's the company that built RoboCop. You might remember there, Jeff. So, yeah, there's definitely something going
Never
on
saw
there.
RoboCop, I should say.
Wow.
But anyway, I know. Listen. No, the answer. Listen, I've said this before on the record. Sorry for the diversion, but if the question is, Jeff, you've seen that movie, right? The answer is always no.
I mean, what you need to do is rather than say I haven't seen it, be positive about it. Putting a Captain America spin on it. I'll put it on the list. And if you haven't seen the Avengers,
I understood that reference.
You see, that's so meta.
See, that's even better. So anyway, carry on.
But yeah, just don't do it with the kids in the room, especially if you're watching the original. Actually, only watch the original. The other one is just a coaster for your drink while you watch the original. Anyways,
okay.
No, listen. With all that in mind, I know everybody who only looks at stat sheets and scores will say, "Oh, Colton Boomer was almost a hero, and then he missed the kicks." Not exactly. Jeff, you mentioned the point there were a number of third downs left on the field. I'm not going to say there were a lot of drops, but the receivers did not come down with as many what would be called 50-50 balls as they have in other games. I think that was a slight factor. I feel like UCF controlling the ball the way they did early. The point keeps being made is, why didn't they run Taj Brooks sooner? Well, that's because they weren't on the field very much. And what is very unprecedented in what they've done all season, Jeff, the UCF offense controlled the clock for basically the entire first half and really should have gone into halftime ahead rather than just with a tie score. And of course, as we've heard more and more on Night Shift Live, when I was talking with Eric Lopez, Bryson Turner, and Nick Porcelli, which you could see on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. Bing! Yeah, he's getting it.
Come on. There we go. You're welcome.
That wasn't a bad bing. Good job. We weren't sure if it was a design call or a check down. Jeff, I think you saw a check down as well. Based on what we're hearing come out of the offense, we'll call it the coordinator's availability. It looks like that was the call. They were trying to go, hey, it's RJ Harvey. He's a bad mamma jamma. Well, he wasn't quite bad mamma jamma enough to get the points. I can understand why you're taking that risk and you're attacking, as we've talked about on this podcast before. They were playing to win rather than not to lose. And I can't disrespect that per se.
Oh yeah. I think I saw on the right side of that play, I saw Xavier and Javon in the corner. And I think if you're with no timeout, and that's the other thing I think that was rough, was they burned 2 timeouts, I think, in the first quarter.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken. So that if you're brought down in bounds, the half is over. Mm-hmm. So and as a New York Giant fan, having seen this happen twice in one freaking game, by the way, not that I'm mad about it or anything. To me, it's like if whatever you're going to run, it's got to be, you have to, if it either scores or stops the clock. And in order to give yourself enough time to get something out of that possession, because to end up on the 1 yard line after what was a solid drive, a really solid drive to end the half, and even though you let them back in the game with 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, it's different than if you go in there, you get 3 before the half. And, the complexion of the second half obviously would be totally different with 3 more points on the board for UCF to start it out. Right. But, it just, oh man, it hurts to not get points out of that. And, I thought at least, if you throw it, X was open in the flat, if you throw it to him, either he catches it and scores or the ball sails out of bounds. If you throw it to Javon in the corner, again, either he catches it or it goes out of bounds. You shovel pass it to RJ, he either drops it, scores, or gets tackled at the 1. And it's just, I think they look back on that when they're like, dadgummit, that's the possession I think everyone in the building looks at and they're like, man, we left that one on the board. Man,
Well,
we should have got at least
exactly.
3 out of that.
Right. And now well, I'll put it this way. To that point, Colton Boomer looked like a hero. Unfortunately, the events of the day, that fake field goal was pretty awesome. Yeah, I know he didn't score, but that's okay. RJ Harvey.
Listen, did you see Colton on that? Listen, if you want to see what, and I met Colton a couple weeks ago at the Feast on the 50, nicest dude in the world. He's really cool.
Yeah.
Love that dude. If we were all in his shoes for that 5-second span, we would be the most frightened we've ever been, because
you could see it in
he
his
was
eyes.
chugging. He's like, oh my God, this is working, and I don't want to get killed. And
here comes this large man. Oh, damn it.
I know. So like, I think that if he was, he could have scored. He dadgum near did. He stepped out of bounds a little early, but I think he was like, look, I got the first down. I've won this. So discretion was the better part of valor there.
Agreed. Yeah, no, that was a business decision, which, by the way, since we're throwing props at special teams guys at the moment, easily Mitch McCarthy's best day, certainly in the back half of the season, if not for the entire year, not just because of having among the higher punting averages on the day, but also the over-the-head snap on the fake is going to be the most underappreciated special teams play of the season. And none of this we're talking about with Boomer happens unless he nails that, period, point blank, end of story.
Yeah. You know where he got that from?
You'll tell me.
Another Australian, Brad Wing.
Really?
Who was the punter for LSU who pulled off that stunt a couple years ago.
Fair enough. Well, hey, there's your inspiration in your story. But I'm going back quickly to the end of the half there, Jeff. You describe all the scenarios. The key thing you leave out in your ones where you're throwing the ball is if you miss, presumably your worst case scenario is 3 points. And now I know Colton Boomer missed a field goal and had one blocked before the game was over, but I think it would be pretty safe to assume at that juncture that would have been a make. And who knows, maybe Colton Boomer's brain would be in a better place and more confident than to kick a ball that would be low enough to be blocked up the middle. I don't know.
Well, I don't think that someone missed a block up front. Yeah, he's not missing that low.
Here's what it is. I hear what you're telling. Is it a miss? Yeah, you would technically count it as one, as somebody.
And I don't think blocks should count as misses, by the way.
I don't either. But for me, was it a missed block? Sure. I don't know that the guy got enough penetration to where I would really feel like I would expect it to be blocked. But I mean, listen, it was a thumb. These things happen, man.
Actually, it went right off of his forearm.
I don't remember hitting that.
No,
I don't remember hitting
it. It hit the guy's four. I forget who it was. 89 for Texas Tech, but it went on. What made it look weird was that
it was a beast throughout the game too.
Yeah. So, but would have been a 23-yarder at the end of the half,
right?
Instead, you get nothing. Then it comes down to the extra point. And I think the part about that end of the half possession though was that drive, 12 plays, 73 yards, 3 minutes, 13 seconds. You march that ball and get nothing. And it's like, oh man, it's like we all that effort, and all that execution, it comes for naught,
Yeah. By the way, unfortunate use of the term "not" for all the UCF fans out there that enjoy the space game. Anyways,
this is not the space game.
I know it wasn't, but the pun was there, Jeff. Don't set the table.
You tried. Sometimes you just try too hard on it, Kyle. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm just like,
the problem with haters is they're going to hate. Anyway,
anyway.
Listen, to your point, though, I think you're absolutely right with the defensive game plan, and they were so well versed on using it from the previous week against Oklahoma State. I'm glad they came back out with it. I can make an argument that they could do similar, if not the same thing against Houston. But I think the main difference, the reason why Texas Tech was so able to counter, I'm pretty sure this is among, if not the biggest offensive line they faced as well. These guys were excellent up front, and they moved the UCF defensive tackles in ways I've seen no one else do all year, not even
Kansas and Kansas State.
Kansas State, yes. Kansas, everything was to the outside, so the defensive tackles weren't a factor there. I think part of the Kansas State thing too is while they may have gotten more push, that was really the first time they were exposed to a fully sized Big 12 group. So I think some of that was a learning experience. I would like to see, it won't happen this season, obviously, but I would like to see an opportunity. If I could see just drills of the D tackles versus the interior line of Kansas State now, I'm sure they would look much different than the film looked in that game. But now being versed and used to playing bigger guys, this defensive tackle team was better, or core, I should say, rather than team, was better, obviously, and got better throughout the year. Kind of, you could put a little bit more weight in their performance as the season went on, right, Jeff? So with all that in mind, I feel like let's give some credit to Texas Tech and their interior line, and then Taj Brooks is a beast too. So this is the most physical football team that they played. Because there wasn't a whole lot of balance. Sure, they threw the ball more, but it was because they had to.
They didn't need to balance.
Well, late in the game they didn't, but
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. They tried balance early and it did not work, right? The team going into this game that was the second best team in fourth down conversion, UCF turns them away twice on fourth down to get the 14-0 lead. Unfortunately, I feel like they kind of strayed from the game plan at times. I think they were trying to gamble and get the turnover, and it didn't work. They started sitting backs back, or guys started to get beat over the top. It's a thing that there was one. I think the biggest pass of the game was essentially negated. It happened early, was essentially negated by a fourth down turnover on downs by Texas Tech too. So that's that bend don't break style, but with a bit more aggression than we've seen in the past. And I would argue that Addison Williams' version of that is working better than his predecessor, T. Will, would have seen as well. Because we all talked about against Tulane how far back they set. That was entirely too far, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I just said Addison Williams at this point running a bend don't break style has a bit better strategy.
Well, we have seen the defense improve, I think, throughout the year. I think that's pretty clear. Now we spin it forward to Houston, regular season finale, senior night. We see a senior night, but it's happening at noon on Saturday. It'll be on FS1. 5-6 UCF, 4-7 Houston. Here's a story on the Cougars this year. Well, they haven't done much. Things kind of started coming apart with a 2 overtime loss at Rice in week 2. That was after they beat UTSA by 3. Their only conference wins this year. They did beat West Virginia on that Hail Mary. Remember that? That seemed like, that was back on October 12th. Right. That was their first Big 12 win. They also won at Baylor in overtime. They're coming off of a 43-30 loss to Oklahoma State, a game that they led for much of it. But then Oklahoma State came back. So they've lost 2 in a row, including they lost to Cincinnati, a team that UCF beat in Cincinnati. So it's been a rough year for Dana Holgorsen and the Cougars. UCF, according to ESPN, has an 84% chance of winning this game. Weather should be 71 degrees at game time and possibly rainy. What's the story on this? Because here we go. Just like last week, bowl eligibility on the line. I think it's a huge feather in UCF's cap to finish your first year in the Big 12 at 500 and go to a bowl game.
For the 9th straight time, by the way.
Right. 9 straight bowl games. Keep the bowl streak alive, but finish your first year in this conference at even par. Right? Little bit. Then the pressure starts to creep in. Then, Thanksgiving weekend, then, the senior day, the whole emotion thing. So your read on this, because I do think that it would be easy to look at, we're just playing Houston. We've beaten them before. They're in our conference. They're having a bad year. We should be able to handle them. And then you get complacent, right? So what's your read right now? What they have to do through this week in order to handle Houston and get that 6th win and hopefully get to a bowl game?
I mean, anybody who was mad about the 1-point loss inside the building, this is the opportunity to essentially erase it. Right now, one could argue that a 7-win team versus a 6-win team might get a better bowl, but not really. I don't really think, well, and one can argue based on how things fall in the scuttlebutt here in the area. If you won the 7th game, you get to go on a plane to Shreveport or something versus possibly staying here in the city limits or in the state, perhaps, if certain rumors transpire. But I think
I see where you're going with that one.
It's not where I'm going. It's where sources are telling me they're going, and I have more than one on that. I have 2 confirmed sources, right?
Sauces.
2 confirmed sources of speculation. That's why I'm not actually reporting anything. But the punchline is this, my good friend. With all the above in mind, this is an opportunity to erase the stink of the loss in Lubbock, and the way these guys love to win in front of their crowd, and doing that for guys who might be hearing it for the last time is going to drive this conversation. I feel like that's what Coach Gus and the staff are going to lean on. And oh, by the way, on the field, I really think UCF can push Houston around. I think both sides of the ball, they will dominate. I think the linebacker issues will be less of a factor. I'm not saying it'll be tantamount to playing, let's say, a Boise State, but I feel like, again, with the same game plan, we have a quarterback who in Houston who basically has about a 500 touchdown to interception ratio, right? To me, what this looks like statistically as I'm previewing this, it looks like the Marshall Gasparilla Bowl game where the quarterback had that, 50% touchdown ratio and the runner was good, not great, but had a lot of the yards. I feel like, and we saw how that game went, by the way, was an absolute domination. I believe that was 19, 18? Yeah, 19. So with all that in mind, that's kind of the vibes I'm getting. Am I guaranteeing a blowout win? No, but I do think UCF controlling the line of scrimmage up front, I see the potential for some statistical anomalies, not anomalies, but improvements to take place. Time of possession could be the best it's been all year in this game against a Big 12 team.
All right. So that moves us into bowl projection time, because I think we may find out pretty quickly where UCF is going to go, depending upon if they win the game on Saturday. I'm pulling up a couple bowl projections here and there. We're going to have to figure it out, but I'm sure Eric is going to want to start his bowl projection column pretty soon. But let's see. Yahoo says Music City Bowl against Wisconsin. CBS says Secure Bowl in our home stadium against Arkansas State, who we played before in a bowl game, and in the Cure Bowl, in fact.
Wasn't that it wasn't the inaugural, it was the second Cure Bowl. That's right.
No, but it was the one where Mackenzie Milton got booed off the field, and because there, a lot of people are pretty smart about that.
And I have no problem saying publicly, I'm glad it's not at Exploria Stadium anymore.
I'm glad it's at our stadium. Let's see what else we got there. Now there is, I'm looking for one more. Oh, Kentucky possibly in the Liberty Bowl. Let's see what else. Now the big rumor that everyone's kind of peeking around at is, could it be USF?
All right, let me put on my Eric Lopez hat. Can we stop this? What are we doing here? Why are we wasting our time playing another team in the American? What are we doing? Can we please leave this in the rear view? No, seriously though, fans, can we leave them in the rear view for sports, for football?
I think it's fun to play them in a bowl game.
Why? What did you possibly gain here? Okay, other than just
win. This extra practice.
Extra practice. Well, that'll happen anyway. But what this looks like to me is an alcoholic that's just going back for one more drink before they go to AA. That's all this looks like, man.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, they need to get bowl eligible first, by the way, South Florida.
Correct.
There's 5 and 6. So, I sympathize with with your idea. Let's hold off. They still have to beat Charlotte. So, let's. One thing at a time here. Let me ask you this. What would you like to see?
What would I like to see? First of all, as long as they're at the bounce house for the Cure Bowl, I'm already a fan. Like, let's lead with that, Jeff.
Okay.
What about that? Let's go there.
So you're like, whatever. You don't care if it's USF, Coastal Carolina, or
I mean, listen,
Washington.
yeah,
Not that it would happen, but
there have been some awesome games at the Cure Bowl. UCF versus like a Troy or a Coastal Carolina, to me, is more interesting than USF coming into the building, right? I can't knock that, or maybe we see let me check. Actually, if we're going to play a team that's coming out of the American, right? Why not make it a good team that's out? I would love to see UTSA, for example, head into the Cure Bowl, return to the Cure Bowl, and battle UCF.
okay.
I don't dislike that.
I like UTSA. All right. They also scare the hell out of me because Frank Harris can play.
Frank Harris, I think he's a 7-year man. And I watched him last year. He's a good football player.
Yeah. And you notice how, UTSA, without him, they had a pretty rough go. But ever since he came back from that injury, they've been hot.
Yeah.
So, that team scares me.
Nearly beat Troy last year in the Cure Bowl.
Yeah. So, I mean, something about UTSA, man. I don't know. That team gives me the creeps. They'll beat you if they're not. They're 8-3 on the year, by the way, and they're playing Tulane on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean that'll probably be a loss, which would also leave the.
I wouldn't pin that just yet. I know Tulane's good, but
true. And one would say then, if we're going to keep it with teams in the American that belong more than the Bulls. Perhaps the Mustangs of SMU would be another interesting concept.
That would be interesting. And another matchup between the student and the teacher, Gus and Rel Ashley.
Actually, I know the one that would really light your fire, Jeff Sharon.
Okay.
See what I did there, setting up the pun as the Liberty Flames come to town? What can I say except you're welcome?
No comment.
That tells me I think it's a realistic outcome.
No comment.
That's what I saw Malik Willis actually.
I know. I'll comment it this way. I know who I'll be rooting for.
Well, don't we all, Jeff?
Anyway, so all right. So noon, FS1, UCF against Houston, senior day. Of course, I will be there. You will be there. A lot of us will be there. So it'll be one last fun affair before we head into bowl season. Maybe we'll see UCF one more time on the home field before the season ends. We don't know. We'll probably find out pretty early next week what the situation is going to be.
If they don't end up in the Cure Bowl for whatever reason, I know the Gasparilla is going to take a shot. Maybe they can't because of contracts. I don't know them well enough, but the way that UCF has been friendly to drawing attendance to the Gasparilla, it's hard to rule it out. Now, I like I said, I'm not an expert on the contracts. It may not be possible, but I have that in mind. I'll put it that way.
Well, it would be a wise move on their part for the reason that you said. It's about attendance, right? And you're going to get more fans. All these bowl games, like you're going to get more fans getting a team that's closer to home, closer to where you're playing the game than not. Plain and simple.
I'm pretty sure, and I haven't looked it up lately, but I'm pretty sure 3 or 4 of the top 5 attended games by UCF the 4 or 5 top attended Gasparilla Bowl games involved UCF, and of course, the biggest one being the Gasparilla Bowl that just happened.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. And we will have night shift after UCF against Houston, conclusion on Saturday. All right. Let's move out of football and talk a little football. And we'll get Bryson Turner in here before so we're going to cover up on football and then cover up on basketball. And Bryson, disappointment is really the only way you can really kind of slice this, I'm sure, for UCF as they had a bye to the second round, but then lose in heartbreaking fashion to Vermont in extra time. And the season, just like that, is over. You were there. You covered it. This is the thing about soccer that drives me crazy, because this team deserved such a better ending than they got, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The fact is that the team finishes the season 10-4-2 overall. If you were to look at that record all on its own, you would say that is a very good season.
Especially first season in the Sun Belt.
Right. The issue with that is that 3 of those 4 losses came consecutively at home to end the year, with a lot of fans showing up both those times. The James Madison match was the most attended UCF soccer match in program history, and this one was the 6th most. So for a season that got a lot of fans coming in to support, it's just unfortunate that men's soccer was not able to show out and make another Sweet 16. Now, this isn't to say that Vermont's a bad team, by the way. They had one of the players that scored a goal was on the Gibraltar national team this year. So it's not, and they made the Sweet 16 last year too. So Vermont's no joke. But the point is that this is a team that was ranked number 1 earlier in the year, and then it went from that to just losing the rest of the way. Now, injuries could easily have played a role in that. Zane Bubb, one of the team's best defenders all season, did not play a lot in this one. So that definitely could have he only played 7 minutes, something like that. So there could have been an injury there that probably affected things, because obviously that back line has been where the team has been, very good, but unfortunately Vermont was able to get past it a few times this time around. They even outshot them. They even outshot them too.
Yeah, that was a shocker. That was
shot attempts 23-17 shot attempts, and then shots on goal 8-5, which is nuts because they were really peppering the goal at the end there. And I will say the team did fight their way through that. Like they got it to overtime. They just really couldn't take it at the end. And it just goes to show how Scott Calabrese has kind of said that, winning college soccer games is a very difficult thing to do. And I think we kind of saw why against Vermont.
Yeah. I have to ask real quick. Did I hear you say the Gibraltar national team as in like the Rock of?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just checking.
Yes. Gibraltar has its own national team. It's kind of like how England, there's no UK national team. It's like England, Wales, Scotland, and so Gibraltar has one too. I don't know. It's geopolitics and stuff.
I'm not mad at it. I just never heard it before.
Well, I did want to come back to it. You mentioned Zane Bubb, who has struggled with injuries since the Georgia State game. The midfielders, also had a little bit of problems there as well. UCF had to go with AJ Seals, who, AJ's normally a normal contributor out there, but the loss of Zane like that, because he couldn't go 100%, that really hurt. And
if you remember, his injury last year was one of the reasons why they had issues too, and he was gone a lot longer last year.
Yeah, and it's just it's too bad because those 3 games are all 1-goal games. They were all coin flips essentially.
Oh yeah.
To James Madison, South Carolina, and Vermont. So now we look forward. Obviously a disappointing conclusion, but if you're Scott Calabrese now, Bryson, number one, how do you view this season after you go on vacation and kind of come back and shed the loss? And then number 2, what do you need to fix? What do you need to work on? What do you need to replace heading into next season?
Well, that's going to be very interesting because you're going to probably want to keep an eye out on the MLS draft process, because you have Luca Dorado and Anderson Rosa, who did not walk on senior night, but they do. All they have left is an extra COVID year. So if the MLS were to scout them and draft them or something like that, then that means that they could potentially be gone, maybe. But so we'll see about that. That could definitely be a blow from an offensive perspective because Luca Dorado is easily, I would argue maybe a little step low, but not far off of Cal Jennings level as far as a striker goes. So getting a new striker would have to be on a big part of the list if Luca ends up leaving. But if he doesn't, as far as the for sureness of everything, you are going to be losing Zane Bubb and Rafael Crivello, who were major experiences on the back line. And then, of course, if Rosa got drafted by the MLS, then that would make it even doubly so. So I would honestly say that the back line is going to be it's going to have a major overhaul this year. I think regardless if Rosa leaves or not, it's just going to be a matter of what kind of magnitude that you're getting at, as far as, what you're thinking as far as this season. Coach Calabrese basically said that this is good for some of the young players because Clarence Alador and Saku Heiskanen were kind of like Heiskanen, I should say, were two of the major players in this match, and they're still young. Both of them are. So to give them this experience in an NCAA type of environment now is very good investment for the future. To kind of quote Coach Calabrese here, the table's set for a big story that we can create, but it's not going to happen this year now. So now we need to work towards what our goals are, which is to continue to pursue championships. So I think that this is definitely not the way he wanted to see this end, but considering the talent that he was able to bring in Saku and Clarence, I think giving them that experience will be very good moving forward. Now I think it's just a matter of, can you kind of repeat the effort and bringing in some new talent again, like Zane and Raphael. So I think it's really good. I could see him going in the transfer portal again. I could easily see him do that. And I think it's just going to be a matter of replacing that back line, and then we'll see what happens in the MLS. But the Sun Belt is not going to make things easy on him because Marshall, Kentucky, West Virginia, they're consistently good. So it'll be so I think next year it's going to be a matter of, okay, will UCF be a conference contender again and get that consistency that we see out of programs like Marshall, Kentucky, West Virginia?
Well, Marshall is still in the tournament. They're playing Stanford in the third round. West Virginia obviously will play Vermont and James Madison. 3 teams from the Sun Belt. But JMU got hot. Credit to them. They had a dip in the middle of the year, and then they got hot. And now they're going to play Loyola. JMU beat Georgetown, the number 4 seed in the whole tournament.
I'll tell you what. I knew they were a sleeper. I remember looking at the schedule. You called it. I remember looking at them and I'm thinking to myself, like, after all of these lower Sun Belt teams, like you start the season really high and then you go through these lower ranked Sun Belt teams. And then you got James Madison, who's right about mid-pack and was ranked pretty good before they had that midweek dip. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, I don't know, man, after the kind of, it could be a trap game. And lo and behold, they got hot at the right time. And they got a good program over there. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah.
Great conference though they were in, though. It's a great conference.
But I think we can all agree. Listen, as bitter as I'm sure that they are feeling right now about how the season ended, huge congrats to Scott Calabrese and his coaching staff. Huge congratulations to the players who made history this year. The first UCF team to be ranked number 1 in a regular season poll. And that's a tremendous achievement no matter how you look at it. It's, I think there was a point where, like, I feel like in the fan base's mind, like men's soccer was kind of just an also ran. But
they had a losing record last year.
Losing
record last year.
And that was in a really weird year also in that final year in the American. But, boy, they pulled it together this year. And I think that, now in the Sun Belt, in arguably the best or at least top 3 conference in men's soccer, they will do tremendous things. So thanks again to Coach Calabrese for all of his candidates throughout the year. And thanks also to the players and the seniors for just phenomenal effort. All right.
Speaking of candidates, by the way, I assume we'll be bringing that up when it comes to be Banny time this year.
I think we should too. Yeah. So let's put a pin in that one as well. Let's hop over to basketball. And I want to bring in Nick Porcelli here to join us here. And we'll start with the men's team, who early season, I get it, right? Don't want to take, you don't want to go, place too much emphasis on this, but they're 4-1. And after beating Cal State Fullerton a week ago, they go to the Jacksonville Classic in St. Augustine. Back-to-back nights, they beat South Dakota State and Charlotte in 3-point games. South Dakota State, by the way, NCAA Tournament team from last year. Charlotte came in with the 7th best scoring defense in the country. And UCF not only beat South Dakota State, they come back the following night on Clark Family Court, named after Bo Clark, the all-time leading scorer at UCF. And in a thriller, UCF beat Charlotte 74-71. Nick, you wrote up the recap on this, and Kyle, I want to get your takes on this too. We'll start with Nick. I know fans will probably look at this, Nick, and say, oh, yeah, but it's South Dakota State and Charlotte. But these two games really, and bringing home a trophy, this was a good confidence booster early in the season for this team, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like, to put it simply, you win a trophy, and especially in the way that they did, coming from behind. Like, I mean, they were down by 6 with less than a minute left in the finals, and yet somehow they won the game by 3. That's a huge way to get your confidence up. And for me, what it shows is that this team has no quit, and that they can handle being down in really tough such situations.
Yeah. UCF was trailing with 1:14 left by 71-65. And this was this was after, in the second half, by the way. They trailed for much of the second half, but then came storming back. They were down by as much as 8 and then came back, tied the game, took the lead, tied the game at 59 with 2 key free throws set by Darius Johnson to send the game to overtime. Darius, by the way, career high 25 points in this game. He was everywhere, and in particular made his free throws. And I think that was what, he was really clutch down the stretch. So then you're down 5 late in the game. Jalen Sellers makes 2 key free throws. They get a stop. Then DJ gets fouled, makes 2 more free throws to get within 3. Missed front end of the 1-and-1 by Charlotte with 28 seconds to go. And Ibrahima Diallo gets through, and he was fantastic on this night. He gets fouled, makes 1 free throw, misses the second. Jalen Sellers again flies in from nowhere, gets an offensive rebound. They get it to Diallo. He scores on a layup to make it 72-71. All right. Then Charlotte has the ball with 7.5 seconds left. And here's what happened, courtesy of UCF, 96.9 the game, Playfly Sports. And let's see if you can recognize this dude on the call here.
7.5 left. Knights by 1. Graves will inbound. DJ trying to block the inbound. He gets it in. Sellers stole it. DJ has it, and he's fouled by Patterson. Sellers stole the inbounding pass. And with 5.7 seconds to go, UCF can go up 3. What a play by Jalen Sellers, a star in black and gold in the making.
So there you go.
That wasn't Mark Daniels.
That was not Mark. That was me. That was me on the radio. That, by the way, thanks to Mark for keeping his for allowing me to keep his seat warm for him. And I was treated to an absolute whale of game. Thanks also to the great Tom Morgan, who was producing the game back in Maitland, making sure everything worked properly. And thanks to Kenny Landis and the entire UCF men's basketball team for making my job easy, which was bringing the action there. But what a tremendous thrill. DJ makes both of those free throws. Boy, Igor Milicic of Charlotte had a wide open 3 at the buzzer, and he just missed it short. And that was it. But I said it in the broadcast, and I'll say it again today. UCF this was a gutsy win from a gutsy team that knows how to defend. And defend they did. And I want to get Kyle in on this too. the style of games that they played. They won the shootout with South Dakota State, Kyle. Then they win this defensive struggle and found a way to win. I think that's what really made the difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. By the way, you might have heard Johnny Dawkins really likes defense. But listen, I'm going to go ahead. I know he's not on the starting lineup typically, but Ibrahima Diallo is a guy that is going to enforce the rim in a special way. I talked to him after the Fullerton game, and it was a complete block party. He had 5 blocks in that game leading into the tournament. And I asked him, the defense on the perimeter draws them to you and you take over. And he basically said, well, they come to me and I block shots. That's what I do. Like, you're my new best friend, buddy. No, but
well, that's the thing. Like, we saw it in the game, and unfortunately, not too many people could watch it because of the TV situation over there was kind of weird. But as an eyewitness account,
I was gonna say thank you for calling the game because you were the source of what was going on.
Well, the thing that I was seeing in this game was there was always a combination of 2 really big guys on the back line. Yes. Okay, so you had a combination of either Omar Payne, Tierra Nosila, or Ibrahima Diallo back there, and then getting Chichi Avery back there also helped. Even though he's not as tall as those other guys, he's not 6'11", he's 6'9", but he protects the rim. And
Avery had a block in that Fullerton game. I want to cut in with that real quick. You have a block there. His welcome to the UCF floor, so to speak. His first bucket was a ferocious dunk as well. This kid's a presence. His name might be Chichi, but I can tell you he's a lot tougher. That's why I'm only going to call him Marcellus. He doesn't look like Chichi when he's playing.
Well, the Matador after Chichi Rodriguez, right?
There you go.
But he and Omar and Ibrahima and Tierno in particular on the back end affecting shots. And in particular, numerous times we had 10 blocks in this game. Most of them were occasions where somebody from Charlotte was driving down the lane, runs into somebody, tries to create a shot, and then the other guy comes in from the backside and handles it. And that also helped out on the rebounding side. UCF had 51 rebounds in this game, out-rebounded the 49ers 51 to, I believe it was 36. It was double. Yeah, 51-36, including a 2-1 advantage on the offensive rebounding end. So now they head into the Thanksgiving holiday. Feels good to win a back-to-back. Feels good to win that tournament in the way that they did. Now we got Stetson coming into town. And our old head coach, Donnie Jones, still there at Stetson Sunday, November 26th, 4 p.m. It's one way to close out the Thanksgiving holiday. Kyle and then Nick. I mean, obviously the goal is to win, but what do we know here about Stetson that we can glean for how UCF? We should be able to handle this game, obviously, but this game's always a little bit more personal, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it feels that way too. I'll say this. I know Coach Dawkins is going to be pressing this team to tighten things up. At this time of year, he's looking to bring turnovers down and proficiency up. I know he's wanting better performance on the free throw line, overall there too. I think this is one of those games where they're going to be sharpening more of those fundamentals, obviously taking nothing away. Let's just put it this way. They may be playing the Hatters, but they'll be trying hard, and that's no cap.
3-2 comes Stetson in this game, Nick. They're a pretty good defensive team themselves. They're 63rd in the country in field goal percentage defense. Although they don't foul a lot. They only commit 12.8 fouls a game. That's tied for 9th fewest in the country. And although they don't score a lot, their formula is the same: defense, defense, defense. They're coming off of 2 straight wins in Daytona Beach. One of them was against Central Michigan. One of them was against Milwaukee.
Yep, they just won a tournament as well, so they're coming off a tournament win.
Yeah, the Sunshine Slam up in Daytona Beach. So, what do you want to see, Nick, from this team in this game on a Sunday night as we conclude the Thanksgiving weekend here?
They didn't get complacent with the way they won that last tournament. I want to see that fire they showed in overtime. I want to see that the entire game, and I want to see them take it to the Hatters. Just that simple. And before we move on from basketball, I just want to point this out. When you were taking us through the final stretch, breaking down every play, there was one name that came up, and I think we need to address him. How good has Jalen Sellers been for the start of the season?
Oh my gosh.
So does that mean, Nick, that you're a buyer on Sellers?
Oh, come on. I'm a huge listen, that play that he made 2 huge plays in that game on the go-ahead basket that Ibrahima got off Ibrahima's missed free throw. He chased down the offensive rebound on that in the corner, made a deflection, chased it down on the baseline, got it to DJ. DJ dropped it off to Ibrahima, and Ibrahima followed up his own shot, missed initially, got blocked, put it back up and in to take the lead. And then on that last play where Charlotte had the inbound, I'm still like, it was like an apparition. Like he came in so fast on that inbound. It was on the far side of the court. This is a short pass, only about 7 feet or so. Patterson inbounded it. And Graves inbounded to Patterson, who's the ace point guard for Charlotte. And Jalen was so fast getting to the ball. I haven't seen speed like that in a long time, especially on defense. It's one of the most remarkable defensive plays I've ever seen.
He's all over the court. You want to talk about offense? He's probably the best scorer.
19 points the other night. Yeah.
And all but like 1 or 2 games, he's had 20 points, and even then, he's had double-digit points in every game. He's the team. I'm pretty sure he's still the team's leading rebounder, and then he can make plays like the ones you just described. I mean, he's so fun to watch, man. So,
God,
one more thing I want to see in Stetson. Just let him cook. Let him do his thing.
Let Jalen cook. He was.
Let me add this too. My favorite thing about this team so far is how they've kind of replaced Taylor Hendricks in the aggregate, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to worry about having CJ Kelly run the point because DJ is back and is healthy. They don't have to worry about Michael Durr's departure because Ibrahima Diallo, Omar Payne, we'll just say, and company for the front court, even without CJ Walker, I might add, is dominant as all get out. They found a good shooter in Sellers. They found a good steal maker and playmaker in Sellers to kind of fill out the rest of what Taylor Hendricks brought to the floor. So hey, I know, whatever, fire Dawkins, sure. But what he's done to turn this roster over with transfers and new arrivals is fantastic.
Yeah. Moneyball, man. He figured it out.
Oh, you saw that movie. I wanted to reference it, but I wasn't
see
sure.
That movie. And I read the book.
Oh my God.
I know, right? Jalen, by the way, is actually he's second on the team in rebounds. Ibrahima overtook him because of the last game. Jalen's second on the team with 6.2, but Ibrahima had 14 rebounds in the game against Charlotte. So over to the other side, women's basketball. Kyle Nash, how about the dub on the home floor over Auburn? We're 3-0 to start the year, 60-53. And listen, we talked about how Auburn was picked toward the bottom of the SEC, but this is still an SEC team. Okay. They're competitive. We know that. UCF heads out to Puerto Rico now to play Jackson State, St. John's, and Sacred Heart over the Thanksgiving holiday. 3 straight days of basketball. But I'm starting to feel they're gelling. They're gelling real good right now. And it's something to see. It's kind of like, it feels like the end of the first year, beginning of the second year under Coach Abe.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too. There are certain elements and pieces to those teams that you are seeing sort of reappear in other players. Now, I would never evoke and say that anybody is just like Diamond Battles. You don't get that. But if you're going to put up a number 3 that plays like Caitlin Peterson, it's pretty close. You want to talk about Tay Sanders, a player that's versatile and can play all over the floor. I give you friends. Georgia Southern transfer last year, Maya Burns. Now, as for, you don't really make another Destiny Thomas or another Masani Kaba, but listen, Jayla Kelly and H. Olcott, they're not bad either. That's kind of what I'm getting to. And
they're better.
What's that?
Especially, and they're going to get better. And Akata,
They're gonna
especially,
get better.
she's so young. Jayla, I love Jayla, man. She is fantastic. She is unafraid.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you point that out too, because listen, first of all, there was the whole aspect of getting the vengeance from the 40-point loss last season. I asked Coach about that after the Anderson game and how big that was going into it. And not only is an opportunity to learn, but there was a little bit of the element of getting that payback that was certainly there too. And talking to Layla Jewett after the game as well, she thought she definitely expressed how sweet it was. But even as a transfer and a former SEC player, Jayla Kelly also seemed to thoroughly enjoy it. But going back to her real quick, Jeff, with what you were talking about, Auburn very clearly went after her. Once they figured out, when Jayla wasn't on the floor, they were able to dominate UCF down below a bit more. They won the rebounding battle, I think, by 7. I wrote the exact numbers and a lot about that on my article about the game on the black and gold banneret.com. But it wasn't just a matter of attacking her. They were actually, I felt like there was a more concerted effort to get a little extra physical. She drew a flagrant foul. She got probably should have been another flagrant called, in my opinion. That was completely blown. This is the part where Lopez chimes in about Big 12 officials, probably, if he were here. But to see her stand up, she drew a technical, but it was her standing up for herself. They figured out they weren't going to out physical and subdue her, and she made it through the rest of the game. Finished with 4 fouls, didn't foul out, and stayed on the floor for her team to where she continued to be the force to keep them in the game. And this team playing defense, goodness gracious, Jeff. Like, I know the rebound numbers are a little thrown because there was one exchange where Auburn had 5 chances at the basket and still were turned away empty-handed. This is what relentless defense looks like, and Satia Messer has her team doing it in similar fashion. The only thing, I think, I'll say this, the biggest difference between the previous regime and this one, they love to chuck it from 3, and boy, can they hit them.
Yeah, that you were mentioning, they are 7th in the country in three-point percentage right now. UCF is 29th in the country in defensive rebounds per game.
Yeah.
So they own the defensive glass, and they are hitting from long distance. And I think that's a really good formula for when we get to Big 12 play. Those 2 things will keep you in games: 3-point shooting and owning the defensive glass.
I mean, those are NBA stats that they concentrate on to win basketball games. So, I mean, that says everything to me outright. And by the way, Jeff, different role players step up big for them. Everybody knows Caitlin Peterson at this point, who can just go off at a moment's notice. But the leading scorer, Layla Jewett, hit some big threes to start to pull away in the third quarter to get the lead as high as 10. And Maya Burns in the fourth quarter then went on her run. She finished with 12.
Did she burn them, Kyle?
Let's just say she was on fire at one point.
We have to stop with the puns. We have to stop. Enough.
Go home, Porcelli.
Hey, I am home.
Hey. It's Thanksgiving, of course he's home. 3-0, 3 games coming up. Jackson State, St. John's, Sacred Heart out in Puerto Rico, and then the Knights are back home for Campbell on December the 3rd. All right. Last little bit I want to come up with here. Bryson, volleyball. This is tough because I think that, they're on the outside looking in RPI wise for the tournament. Now, possibly a postseason tournament that's not the NCAA is in store, but we're coming down to the final 2 matches of the season, including tonight at Iowa State, Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m., and then Saturday at Kansas. UCF won at Kansas last year, and I thought that was a pretty big springboard match for them. So I think that match is winnable. I think both of these matches are winnable, to be honest with you. That doesn't mean that they'll be easy because, like we said, they're on the road. They're 17-10, trying to get to that 19-win mark before the postseason. At least give the committee something to think about heading into this final weekend, Bryson? Your thoughts right now, because they haven't won a set since the second Houston match back on November the 4th. It's been 2 sweeps against BYU and then the sweep against number 5 Texas. BYU is number 12, Texas number 5. It is what it is. But these 2 matches, I think, are pretty key, no?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I want to say about the Texas match because I still remember when Coach Dagenais told me about this in a press conference maybe a couple years ago. You can have a better game where you lose by a sweep than when you lose 3-2 sometimes. And this is one of those instances where the 3-0 might look bad, but when you look a little deeper, you can actually see the improvement in this UCF volleyball squad from the past couple of matches, from the past couple of sweeps. For one, they ended up having a much better hitting percentage on the match in 223. In this, when they were pushed back against the wall against the number 5 team in the country in set number 3, they ended up having a 441 hitting percentage in that last set. They really show. Now, unfortunately, Texas ended up winning that set 25-23. But when you look at the set scores, 25-20, 25-22, 25-23, they were in the game.
They were tight
the entire way through. Texas just ended up, coming away early because they have a whole bunch of McKenna Melvilles on that team with a couple of potential Olympic candidates. And yet UCF still hung with them. And I think that this Coach Maurer even said in the press conference they are much better health-wise because all of their players were available for the first time all season. I think that they are in a very good condition going into these last 2 matches. Now, will they win? They're on the road. Winning on the road in volleyball is very hard, especially when both teams are very good. But if UCF can stand up to the defending national champions, number 5 ranked in the country, and hang with them, then I think that we could potentially see that again for Iowa State and Kansas. And the only reason I think they wouldn't be is because of home field advantage. So I think that yes, it's rough to see them get another sweep, but I also think that they showed improvement. And I think that against a team like Texas, that is as much as you can ask for at this moment in time. Let's just hope that they can maybe finish at 5. I would say a 500 finish in the Big 12 is a solid first season in this conference, considering how good this conference is in volleyball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're 8-8 right now. So you get out of there, if you split these last 2, you finish 9-9. Now, like we said, it is going to be tough. Iowa State's 31 in the RPI. Kansas is 14. I think UCF's RPI is a little artificially low because of how the schedule was so backloaded. My hope is that, I don't know, Eric would probably know more about this, but I want to know what you think, Bryson. Do you think that could UCF sneak into the tournament, maybe into those last 4 if they take these last 2? Would it push their RPI up high enough into the 40s that they could get in?
I could see if they win these last 2, I could see as being in the bubble conversation, maybe. The issue is, I will say that the losses that they had, because the schedule was so backloaded, they are technically good losses. We also have that win against Florida State.
But there's still losses, which is the bummer.
Yeah, that is the bummer. You are right about that. But I think that if you do win both, I think in order to be even in the conversation, you have to win both of these matches in order to be in the conversation at all. And so we'll see how it goes. I think, honestly, looking into this, because remember what we were saying coming into this season. This is the first season that without McKenna Melville, the offense is going to be completely different than it was over the last 5 years, where it's going to be a lot more evenly split. And remember, they were undefeated until in conference play, until they reached this gauntlet where you get a whole bunch of NCAA tournament level opponents. So I remember saying this before, is if you get to this gauntlet and you're undefeated, I would consider this season a general success in the sense that you at least were able to weather the storm of McKenna Melville leaving, because that means your team is still at least competent. You don't have to. Now you can still be a competent team and miss the NCAA tournament. That's just kind of how it is. But I think that that they managed to weather the storm, and I think a part of that actually has to do with the senior leadership that did stay. Lauren Clark, Claudia Dillon, and Abby Hansen had their senior night. Were celebrated, and Coach Maurer mentioned how they were major part in helping the team bond and leading the team through this period of transition. And so I think that they have now succeeded in the transition. And now it's just about building off of that going forward. But if you can sneak into the NCAA tournament in this season, then I would say that's way above the expectations I had for them coming in.
They would have Emily Wilson coming back next year, Ava Armour with another year of experience. And I think that would be a really good, a team that's really set themselves up for success going forward in the Big 12 is UCF volleyball, if they can finish that. And by the way, even if they don't get into the NCAA tournament, the NIVC is still around. You can get a little bit more postseason experience. I think UCF could very well be one of the favorites to win that tournament if they were to get into it. 32 team tournament. Let's see. So I wouldn't rule it out. It would at least give them a chance to get to 20 wins. I think, like you said, Bryson, 20 wins, 500 in conference, compete. Maybe get to a postseason with the NIVC or NCAA, whatever happens. I think that's tremendous for UCF volleyball. All right, let's wrap it up, boys, because I know you all will have to get on the road to where you got to go for the holiday. I'm staying home. All my family came here. But thanks to you, Kyle. Thanks to Nick. Thanks to Bryson. Thanks to Eric, the student of the game, Kyle Nash, the SOTG, on your social medias. Nick is at Nick Porcelli 2 on X. Bryson is at It's Bryson Turner. I am at Jeff Sharon on Threads. Make sure you follow us, Black and Gold Banneret, UCF Banneret _SBN on X. We're moving a little bit more content over toward Threads, Black and Gold Banneret there. Instagram, Black and Gold Banneret. I got a lot of good photos that we're going to start dropping for you from all of our incredible photographers, Brenna Johnson, Derek Warden, who've just been doing great stuff for us, Chris Seifert as well. Also, YouTube channel, Black and Gold Banneret on YouTube. We have some of the latest stuff from up there. As we head into the Thanksgiving, what am I missing, guys? Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. Social media has been fragmented and is driving my 40-year-old addled brain crazy. But you know where to find us. Search for us, and we appreciate all your support. And on behalf of all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret and the Night Shift podcast, we wish you a happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving holiday. We will see you on Saturday for UCF against Houston, Senior Day, and then basketball against Stetson on Sunday. Fellas, thank you. Have a great week. Have a great holiday weekend. Be safe, all right?
Take care, gentlemen.
All right, and happy Thanksgiving to you listening. Hope you enjoy it. Be nice to your in-laws. Talk to you later. Happy Thanksgiving. Go Knights. Charge on. We'll see you.